Welcome. I'm Patricia Murphy, a reporter for Georgia Public Broadcasting. You are watching the Atlanta Press Club's Loudermilk Young debate series. This is a debate for the primary election among Republicans for Congressional District 13. In order to ensure everyone's safety, the candidates are participating from home. The Atlanta Press Club would like to offer a special thank you to broadcast partner Georgia Public Broadcasting for helping and organize today's debate. Now let's meet the candidates. They are in alphabetical order. Cesar Gonzales, a professional motorcycle rider, the owner of a motorcycle shop, and an author. And Becky E Hites is a businesswoman and Wall Street analyst. And I'm also joined in the questioning today by Molly Samuel, a reporter with WABE 90.1 FM. And we'll now get started. Please note that candidates will have 60 seconds to answer their questions, 30 seconds for a rebuttal. And for the full set of rules for these debates, please visit atlantapressclub.org. And to start the debate, each candidate will be asked one question. Molly, please ask your question of Ms. Hites.
Ms. Hites, you emphasize the importance of minimizing government spending and the role of the federal government. What's your opinion on the federal response to the coronavirus?
Thanks, Molly, and thanks, Patricia. And we appreciate the Atlanta Press Club for doing this and GPB. For sure, the government needed to take some steps to address the financial pain that they created when they forced everybody to shut down and stay at home. It's going to be challenging next year on the budgeting, right? Because we're going to start in a bigger hole than we were already in. And I think that we're going to have to looking at growing the economy and trying to create additional jobs and improve the infrastructure and use the money that we're spending to create long-term value for our country. But for sure, it's a challenge. We didn't really have the money to spend to start with. I think the state of Georgia is a little bit better, though, because we had a bit of a cushion that they had had managed to build up. But I think still the balanced budget amendment requirement in Georgia is going to be challenging to find out where those cuts are going to come from.
Thank you, Ms. Hites. And Molly, you may now ask a question to Cesar Gonzales.
Mr. Gonzales, as a small business owner, what are your recommendations on what's most needed to help restart the economy?
Well, I think that most of the smaller businesses, of course, could use a hand up. I don't think the SBA is moving quickly enough to offer assistance in lieu of banks in particular are expediting the disbursement of funds to larger businesses. But taking it back to the smaller businesses, I think we need more job skills training in our working environment in order to be able to better compete in this technology-driven world. I think it's fair to say that as a small business, we're kind of struggling and looking for people with skills that we can use. And going forward, again, education skills, job skills is very important. I think that's something we need to focus on.
Thank you, Mr. Gonzales. That concludes the first portion of our debate. The candidates will now ask a question of their opponents. Candidates will have 30 seconds to ask the question, 30 seconds to respond, and another 30 seconds for rebuttal. By random selection, Cesar Gonzales, you will ask the first question to Ms. Hites.
Hello, Ms. Hites.
Hi, Cesar.
All of your professional experience and speaking engagements have been out of state and international. That's commendable. You've worked on Wall Street for 20 years. Your business is registered in Texas, and your campaign is based out of Orlando, Florida. How can you relate to effectively represent the interests of the businesses and the people here in the 13th District?
Thanks so much, Cesar, for the question. So my campaign is based here. My campaign is being run by me. I have a strategist out of Florida who's helping me identify what how effective I can be in improving the district and also in running my campaign, because I'm a newbie to the world of politics. I run a successful business. I built that business from scratch in 5 years. Actually, the first year, our top line was 6 figures, and the business has been profitable in every year. It was formed in Texas because my dad had died and my brother had moved to Texas, and the plan had been to move to Texas. But my widowed mother, didn't want to move. And so now I've re-engaged in Georgia, and that's why I'm running for Congress. I will tell you from the business development perspective, because I have Wall Street experience, I know how to bring in business. I've already been in touch with the Georgia port. A lot of jobs have been growing along that corridor. I have the list of the names in economic development within each of the counties to build on those relationships. You and I agree that we need to increase skills-based training.
Your time has expired, Ms. Hites. Thank you.
That's fine. Thank you.
It is now your turn to ask Cesar Gonzales a question.
Thanks. So, Cesar, I'm going to ask you a business question. You're a small business owner here. You've represented yourself as a successful small business owner. But if you check the Secretary of State's records, your business has been suspended twice since 2015. So what about your experience can you share with us to give the district confidence that you'll actually be able to execute on your plan?
Okay, well, first of all, my business wasn't suspended at all, but rather when I closed the operations down, the Georgia Corporations Commissions just shuts down your articles of incorporation. Okay, I'm in the motorcycle business, and we had, unfortunately, an economic downturn, of course, during the Obama years. And you had an industry where new unit sales were down between 30 and 50%. Okay, that deal is. Imagine what that does to independent shops such as my own. Under Trump, deregulating business, the motorcycle industry is starting to come back, and we're starting to see an increase in the flow. We're seeing with more money in the private sector, we've got people who are reinvesting in motorcycles, being that they're only secondary transportation as opposed to cars, which are primary.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Gonzales. Ms. Hites, did you have a rebuttal to that?
Well, again, it's difficult times now because coronavirus is shut the entire economy down. So it's not going to be easy getting anything rejuvenated here. And I mean, between my Wall Street experience with opportunity zones and their economic stimulus packages in the state of Georgia, their tax incentives. So I guess I would just say I've got a history globally of building a business, and your business hasn't even been in consistent operation for the past 20 years.
All right, well, that concludes our second round. For those just joining us, this is the Republican primary debate, excuse me, for the 13th Congressional District in Georgia. And Molly, Samuel, and I will now continue to ask questions of the candidates. Candidates will have 60 seconds to respond and 30 seconds for a rebuttal. Please raise your hand if you would like a rebuttal, candidates, and I'll recognize you for that. And I will take the first question in this round. And Ms. Hites, this question is for you. In 2016, Hillary Clinton won the 13th district by more than 40 points over Donald Trump. And on your website, you call yourself a Trumplican. How are you the right person to represent this district, and how will you plan to win in November if you win the primary?
Right. So it's a challenging district demographically, as you probably know. When the redistricting happened a number of years ago, David Scott is the incumbent. He's been in the position for 16 years. It's not an easy path. Obviously, we're going to be reaching out to people in the middle, to conservatives who are not Republicans. My background on the economic side, we plan to reach out on town halls. We plan to identify the process for how we're going to make people's lives better, because fundamentally, I think we all just want, the right to live our lives the way we want to live our lives, and to have government out of our way, but to have enough support from the community that we can affect the things that we're trying to accomplish.
All right, thank you, Ms. Hites. Did you have any rebuttal to that, Mr. Gonzales?
None other than the fact that I think Ms. Hites has no real connections or roots to the community. We're talking about a community that's largely minority, and the needs of the minority community tend to be a bit different from the mainstream. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Mr. Gonzales. Molly, it's now your turn to ask a question of the candidates.
Mr. Gonzales, you posted a couple items on your Facebook page critical of voting by mail. More than 1 million Georgia voters have requested absentee ballots for the primary election, according to the Secretary of State's office. Do you oppose voting by mail?
In most cases, yes, because it just leaves too much latitude for fraud. I think you have a number of cases throughout the country where you've had ballots that were suppressed by basically not being processed through, left at the post office, or could be duplicated. Other people other than where the ballots are intended to go are actually filling the ballots out and sending them in. I just see too much potential for fraud there. So I certainly am opposed.
All right, the next question is for Ms. Hites. Ms. Hites, you have said that the right to bear arms is fundamental to the balance of power in this country. Could you expand on what you mean by that?
Absolutely. So I grew up in a military family. I was surrounded by firearms, in this case for the defense of our country, away from our country. But anytime, there are a number of studies, there's a number of countries that you've seen this happen. Anytime the citizenry doesn't have the ability to defend itself against aggression, whether that be from outside the country or from the government or from whatever it is, you tend to lose your freedoms. And so I'm not saying we should be walking around with guns, challenging people on our property, but I think it's fundamental that we need to have that right. I own a gun, it's in our house. My brother owns several and defended our house. The men in our family defended our family until they were gone, and now I defend our family. But I think it's very important to have regulations, about who can have guns, and we have those in place. I have issues with increasing those regulations because I don't think the current ones we have online are enforced. But I'm definitely a family that's been around guns, of course.
Thank you, Ms. Hites. Your time has expired. Molly, you'll ask the next question.
Mr. Gonzales, when it comes to immigration reform, what solutions do you propose? President Trump has moved to end the Deferred Action for Childhood Arrivals program, or DACA. What would you like to see happen for the participants in that program who are known as the Dreamers?
I'm glad you asked that question. Being a child of immigrants, of course, that particular subject is kind of close to my heart. The thing is, I guess I'm of two minds, only because you have children who are basically brought over not by their own volition, but by their situation, of course. The problem that I'm having with it is you have these kids that are coming over here, they're undocumented, they're basically American, but they're not familiarizing themselves with the immigration process. We have an immigration process here in this country that is cumbersome, it's fraught with bureaucracy. What I propose is that we address those in those situations individually, but also close our borders in order to be able to address the DACA situation effectively, as well as immigration.
Molly, can I comment on that?
Yes, ma'am.
So I am empathetic to the people who've been brought here through no fault of their own and have grown up in our country. But I have plenty of friends who wanted to be in America but left because the rules were that they couldn't stay here. So I object to rewarding the breaking of our laws. It's not an easy situation. Our immigration system is definitely broken, and it definitely needs to be fixed, and Congress hasn't done its job.
All right. Thank you, Ms. Hites. That is all the time we have for questions. Each candidate will now have 60 seconds for a closing statement. Becky Hites, you'll get the first closing statement.
Thanks so much, Patricia. So we have a plan to take back the district. It's a district that the numbers are against us. I'm going to push back a little bit on Caesar and say I do have a minority presence. I have friends who are minorities, and in fact, got a text from a Black friend in one of the southern districts that she had voted for me. So the support is there. We've got a plan. We've got steps. We've defined steps, and it's not going to be an easy district, but we need to take it back red, and I think I'm the candidate to do that. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Hites. Cesar Gonzales, it's your turn for a closing statement.
Okay. I feel that I'm the most qualified candidate here because I've lived in the 13th district for over 20 years as a mixed race minority and a small business person. I have established ties in the community and understand the challenges of the urban community. As a technician, as well as a mechanical engineer, I look at problems from all angles and formulate pragmatic and effective solutions in real time. My constituents deserve the same approach in Washington, D.C. by a person who is accustomed, dedicated, and connected to the community and in solving problems affecting us in Georgia's 13th district.
All right. Well, thank you, Mr. Gonzales. And that concludes our debate. We'd like to remind voters that Election Day is Tuesday, June 9th, and in-person early voting begins on May 18th. I'd like to thank the candidates, of course, for participating today and give a special thank you to Molly Samuel for assisting in the questioning. I'd also like to thank the Atlanta Press Club and Georgia Public Broadcasting for arranging today's debate. For more information on the full schedule of primary debates, please visit atlantapressclub.org. A debate will be archived there, as well as at gpb.org, the website of Georgia Public Broadcasting. I'm Patricia Murphy, and thank you for joining us for the Atlanta Press Club Loudermilk Young Debate Series.